Today, I'm reviewing Oman Air's Boeing 787 business class, a product that I think is possibly the most underrated in the Middle East, if not the whole world. This 5.5 hour flight from Muscat to Bangkok was almost perfect, and the Apex Suite seat that Oman Air use is, in a lot of ways, superior to many of the world's best airlines. So buckle up and enjoy this review of Oman Air, an overlooked airline that is really worth considering. We start with me stepping off an Oman Air flight I just took from Milan, and I had a 2.5 hour layover here in Muscat, the hub of Oman Air. The airport is really nice actually and feels very large and modern, though in reality it only serves 13 million passengers a year, so it is on the smaller side. Much like Oman Air in fact, who feel like a boutique airline with a relatively small fleet of 34 aircraft, 9 of which are the Boeing 787-9 I'm flying on today, which they use to serve a modest network of short and medium haul routes throughout Europe, the Middle East and South Asia. Another cool thing I like about the airport is they have these scent diffusers giving the whole airport the smell of frankincense. But don't worry, because if you don't like that smell, you can go and sit by KFC or McDonald's instead. As I'd just gotten off an overnight flight from Milan in Oman Air's economy class, and I only managed to get about 1 hour of sleep on that flight, I was in desperate need of some rest and refreshment, so I headed to the Oman Air Business Lounge located on the upper floor of the terminal. This was actually a pretty good lounge, and I was able to have a nice shower. Walking in, you're greeted by the Sultan of Oman himself and a big Model 787. Then heading into the main lounge area, it's pretty nice. Surprisingly large too for an airport of this size, with 2 separate dining areas, plenty of private seating, a staffed bar, and most importantly for me, proper showers. They also have a sleeping room with private curtained off beds if you have a long layover and want some sleep. Honestly, it was all really good, except for the breakfast offering. There were hardly any options, and everything sitting out was between lukewarm and cold, which didn't make for a great eating experience. It tasted nice enough though, and I like the Arabic coffee and dates, so it's not all bad. The private shower rooms were good too, if a bit on the small side, and they also desperately need an extractor fan in here, as condensation was all over the walls and it got very foggy. But they provide good toiletries, shaving and dental kits, and plenty of clean towels, so pretty good overall. Boarding was supposed to start 1 hour before departure, so I headed over in time for that. And walking through the airport is a very pleasant place to be, and not too big, so even though the gate was right at the end of the terminal, it only took a few minutes to walk there. To get to the gate area, you go down to the floor below, and the gate area was spacious with plenty of seats and big windows providing lots of natural light. Though in reality, boarding started a lot later than my boarding pass indicated, maybe only 30 minutes before departure instead of the 1 hour they said. Anyway, here's our plane for today, a 4-year-old Boeing 787-9 registered A40SJ, with 30 business class seats and 258 economy seats. They do also have another configuration of this aircraft with 8 first class seats, which look like this, but they don't actually do a first class service anymore, it's just marketed as a sort of business plus thing. And whilst waiting for boarding to start, I got a good view of another Oman Air 787 landing, and I have to say, I love the Oman Air livery, one of the best looking planes in my opinion. Then it was time for boarding, but before we step on board, here are the stats and route map for today's flight, where we would cruise for a smooth 5.5 hours over the Arabian Sea, India and the Bay of Bengal, to arrive just 1 minute late in Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport. The seat Oman Air use in business class is called the Apex Suite, and is actually used by a few other airlines like Japan Airlines and Korean Air, though I've read that airlines hate it as it isn't a very efficient use of cabin space, so it's gradually being phased out, which is a shame in my opinion. You can see here on Aerolopa's seat map how the window seats are far better than the aisle seats. More spacious, more private, great window views and direct aisle access. Oman Air actually has this cool 3D view which you can play around with, and this is the seat I ended up choosing, 1K. But really, unless you're travelling as a couple, I recommend you just choose any window seat, as they're just better in every way, especially if you're tall. Walking into the cabin, you can see how they're arranged in a 2-2-2 layout, and the first impressions are excellent. I really like the colour palette and the design they've chosen. It feels very understated and classy. Waiting on the seat are a big pillow, quilted blanket and mattress topper, and here you can see the seat's best feature is the insane amount of legroom. The one downside is that the TV feels really far away, so you have to squint slightly and can't use the touchscreen, but the sense of space more than makes up for that. And you can see there's no footbox to confine your legs when sleeping either. which makes it the most spacious business class bed I've ever tried. I will say though, the remote control on the left and the seat controls on the right are very poorly placed, falling right where your hands naturally rest, and I accidentally brushed the remote a few times, turning lights on and pausing my movie midway. Despite being a day flight, you get a full bedding kit, including this very comfy pillow, a thick and soft quilted blanket, and a mattress topper, which all conveniently fit under the footstool along with my small tote bag. That is the only real storage space on this seat, but it accommodates a lot of stuff, which I appreciate, as on many business class seats you'll need to put bedding in the overhead bins for takeoff and landing. There's also a water bottle and a pair of headphones in this little storage area, and the headphones are just fine, though I prefer using this wireless transmitter I recently bought, which lets me connect my Bluetooth headphones to the TV. Genuine game changer, and I can't believe I didn't get one sooner. And there's an Amazon affiliate link in the description if you want to get one for yourself. Now looking at the IFE system, and my main gripe is that there's so much legroom the TV is actually a bit too far away. So even though the TV is quite big, it feels smaller than it really is. There is a touchscreen remote, but it's a bit laggy and the screen is too small to show all that information, so trying to use it and finding anything just felt clunky and difficult. In terms of content selection, it's not bad actually, though miles behind their regional competitors like Emirates. Here I'm showing you the economy screen, but the actual content is identical. There's a good amount of movies and actually quite an impressive range of languages, even including Urdu, so finding something to watch shouldn't be too hard. It didn't have many of the latest movie releases though, and the TV selection was very lacking, with many shows only having one episode for example. The moving map is pretty decent though. And very lastly on the seat, there are two USB ports, a headphone port, and power socket under the armrest. And the adjustable headrest is nice and comfy too. My window view was also great. Due to how long these seats are, I actually had 3 whole windows to myself. Now during boarding, the crew were constantly busy giving an impressive level of service. First, hot towels on a dish were handed out, then a drink which I got lemon and mint for, though champagne was also available too. Then they handed out dates and Arabic coffee, which were great by the way. Who'd have thought a bit of cardamom would make coffee taste so good? Then very lastly, they took our drink orders to be served after takeoff. So overall, things were off to a pretty good start, and we pushed back more or less on time. And then the safety video started playing, which does a nice job of showing off Oman. Now if you've never been to Oman, then I have to say it's one of the most underrated countries I've ever been to. I went about 6 years ago now, but I don't think much has changed in that time. The landscapes are incredible, hotels are really nice, and the people are super friendly. I've been to over 50 countries at this point, and Oman is definitely in the top 10. And compared to other Middle Eastern countries I've visited, they don't have the fake feeling ultra luxury stuff everywhere. So it's just a pleasant place to visit, as long as you're somewhere that's air conditioned, that is. Now get ready for a very scenic takeoff with views of Muscat and the surrounding mountains of Oman. After takeoff, I popped up the seat divider to give myself a bit of extra privacy, and once up, it actually makes this one of the most private business class seats out there. Impressive considering the lack of a door. And now it's time for the best bit, the food. Starting off with the menu, there was just one service due to the length of the flight, but the selection was impressive, with one Western menu and one Omani menu, each with a few different options, and quite an extensive drinks list too. Unlike some airlines in the region, Oman Air is definitely not a dry airline. All of the dishes sounded pretty appealing to me, but I figured since this is Oman Air, I should get the Omani option. But before that, I got a coffee and a biscuit because it was still early and I'd only gotten 1 hour of sleep the night before. Here you can see as I almost spill my coffee, the table swings back to give you just enough space to squeeze out if you need to, which is good as I don't want to be trapped in the entire meal service. It also slides back and forward and is very sturdy, so overall a good table. Then for the main meal, they plate the table very nicely, and notice how the plates and salt and pepper shakers are all designed to invoke the mountainous landscape of Oman. At least I think that's the intention. Anyway, to start I got basically the Omani version of an Arabic meze, with a delicious red lentil soup, these extremely flavourful chicken and lamb skewers char grilled with a spicy tamarind sauce, plus some pita bread, roast aubergine, and smoked kingfish on the side. Overall a really nice meal, and almost too much considering this was just a starter. Here I am, enjoying the smorgasbord of food before me. Then for the main, a lamb shua, which is apparently the national dish of Oman. The lamb was fork tender, and this was another delicious Omani meal. Lastly for dessert was a burnt Basque cheesecake, and whilst this was nice, whoever made the menu has clearly never had an actual Basque cheesecake, as this was not it. Still tasted good though. Also, Oman Air have a very good amenity kit from the Omani brand Avios. Kits weren't actually handed out on this flight as it was quite short and during the daytime, but I just asked one of the cabin crew and they were happy to give me one. I like that it has both mouthwash and hand sanitizer, which is more than most airlines give you. Now on to perhaps the best feature of the seat in my eyes, the bed mode. As I mentioned earlier, this is by far the most spacious bed I've had on a plane, and it's basically a perfect rectangle, so it doesn't taper in the feet or shoulder area like many seats. It's also incredibly long, and I found I was able to lay on my stomach comfortably, which isn't possible on most seats. The mattress topper was a bit on the thin side, so don't expect the softest bed, but overall, the sheer size combined with the soft blanket and pillow let me sleep comfortably for about half of this flight. Now I have even more good news, the loo review is actually quite interesting. You get all the usual stuff like branded amenities, toothbrush and shaving kit, etc. But a few things make it interesting. First, a pedal operated bin so you don't have to touch the grubby lid. But most unique of all, the toilet has a bidet, which I don't think I've ever seen in a plane toilet. And lastly, they have this little folding ledge to tie your shoelaces or something. As we approach Bangkok, there's just one more thing to mention, the Wi-Fi, which was a bit disappointing honestly. You can pay $12 for a whopping 10 megabytes of data, or their highest package is 40 megabytes for $29. This seems like the kind of price you would pay 10 years ago and really doesn't look good when many airlines offer free Wi-Fi in business class. And Qatar Airways, for example, give every passenger unlimited fast Starlink Wi-Fi for free on many flights. But enough complaining about the Wi-Fi, time for our extremely scenic sunset approach into Bangkok, where we got some stunning views of the city and sunset, so sit back and enjoy that, or just skip to 14:30 in the video for my final review. So here we are in Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport, after an extremely pleasant 5.5 hour flight with Oman Air. The Apex Suite seat is honestly one of my favourites, and I'm really surprised more airlines don't use it, with the big caveat that the window seats are vastly superior to the aisle seats. And even though I booked this flight through British Airways using Avios, you can actually find some really good deals when connecting to Asia via Oman, so they score a lot of points in the value department too. That being said, their operations are quite limited and they're a bit less well-rounded than some larger competitors like Emirates and Qatar Airways. Plus the breakfast in the lounge was disappointing. So I'm giving them a very strong 82.5%, mainly because the Apex Suite seat is generally one of the best out there, and the food service and crew were really good too. Thanks to that, I'm going to put them at an 8 out of 10 on my airline tier list, comparable to the likes of Korean Air, Malaysia Airlines and KLM, but still lagging behind my favourite airlines such as Singapore Airlines and Etihad. And also Cathay Pacific, who I'll talk about in next week's video, where I took a grueling 14-hour flight in their Airbus A350-1000 economy class from Hong Kong to London, and actually ended up being one of the best long-haul flights of my life, mainly because the cabin wasn't even half full, so stay tuned for that. Then, over the next few weeks, I'll have reviews of Oman Air's economy, British Airways short haul, and another Cathay flight from Bangkok to Hong Kong. So subscribe to be notified about those videos, and don't forget to smash the like button. Thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye.